Hey everyone, this is Regina Becker. I am the ESL teacher down at Southern Elementary. Today I am making a screencast for you about sentence patterning, which is a sentence writing strategy that I teach to my beginning writers and my ELLs. So before you can begin with sentence patterning, you have to teach or review wherever you are in your instruction the following four parts of speech. So day one would be designated for nouns. Day two, you will talk about adjectives. Day three, you would talk about verbs. And then on day four, you would talk about prepositional phrases. Prepositions are important for the kids to know, but if you have not taught prepositions before, you can jump right into the prepositional phrases because once the discussion begins about how they tell us, where something is or where something is happening, the kids really catch on fast, so no worries. Okay, so on day one, you're going to talk about nouns. I have an anchor chart that I do with my students. My anchor charts are usually always interactive, but I try to remake it digitally for the purpose of this screencast, and it's similar, but I just wanted you to basically have an idea of what it looks like. So anyway, on day one of nouns, you explain to the students what a noun is. So it can be a person, a place, a thing, or an animal. Here is what my anchor chart looks like. So what I do is I come prepared with some pictures of nouns, and as we're discussing the types of nouns, I have them help me to sort the pictures and glue them onto the anchor chart, and we label them. And then this is hung up in the classroom for them to refer to later. So after the discussion about nouns and the sort, we move to a student Freyer-ish model. So I know it's not the traditional way to use a Freyer. It's basically more like a web, but it's just easier for the kids to create it if it's in this form. So I do teach them how to fold it into quarters and then to dog ear this the center. That's the tricky part, is knowing which corner to dog ear. And then when they open it back up, I model which of the sides, or the lines rather, from the folds to trace, and then we begin with the Freyer model. So for this particular activity, I had them write the word nouns in the center, and then in each of the four quadrants, they wrote the four types of nouns, and then I had them draw a picture of each type, and some of the kids were able to label them as well. It just kind of depends on your kids and what they're capable of. So, yeah, okay. So next day you will talk about adjectives. Again, I tried to make my anchor chart digital, but basically what you're seeing is the questions that one would ask in order to brainstorm a list of adjectives about something. So here is a picture of my actual anchor chart, and I do have this done already, but what I usually do is I put up a picture of something for the students to look at, and as we are, like, it could be an animal like an elephant or giraffe or a fish or whatever, and we go through each of these questions and we answer them to brainstorm a list of adjectives that describes said picture. My anchor chart has 9 questions. I think this slide has 10. So there's one that I couldn't fit onto the chart. But anyway, you could discuss the size of things, the colors, how do things taste, for example, sour, spicy, or sweet, shapes, how does it look, so words like pretty or scary, that's why I chose those 2 pictures. How does it feel, hot and cold, but you could also talk about your actual feelings, sad, happy, surprised. Okay. How does it behave? Is it slow? Is it kind? So those are some of those types of adjectives. How does it smell? Fresh, or let's say stinky, and then how many and how does it sound? Loud or quiet? So just a great way for you to introduce adjectives by showing them a real life picture up on the smartboard, or something you clip from a magazine, or whatever. And then I have them do it again with a different picture. So this is a picture of a monkey that I stuck up on the smartboard one day, and they wrote the name of it in the center, and we brainstormed a list of adjectives to describe the monkey based on the answers to the questions from the anchor chart. Okay, so on day, where are we? 3. On day 3, you'll talk about verbs. Verbs, of course, are actions or things that we can do. Here's the anchor chart that I have prepared for the students. So we talk about verbs, we brainstorm verbs, and I add them onto the chart. And then at the bottom, we read sentences and underline the verbs that are in those sentences. Okay. We also take a look at sentences that I already wrote from this previous slide here, and I have them help me to highlight or circle the verb in those sentences. And then finally, I have them write their own sentences and circle the verbs. I guess I should have mentioned too that when we first begin talking about verbs, we do pantomiming, or Simon Says, and that's a great activation strategy as well. So, clap your hands, put your hands on your head, stand up, sit down, stomp your feet, turn around in a circle. Having them act out verbs is also very helpful. Okay, so on day 4 then, you would talk about prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrase is a group of words that tells us where something is. So I would begin this activity, here is my anchor chart, with with the prepositional phrases blank on the chart. So I draw the pictures, I have the sentence starter, and then they have to help me fill in the prepositional phrases. And then on day 2 of this, if I have a day 2, I cover up the prepositional phrases from the prior day with post-it notes, and then they have to guess and remember what the prepositional phrase is for each of the pictures, and we take them off one by one. And they really like doing that because they love post-it notes. So that's a great activity for them. Finally, when you have reviewed all of those 4 parts of speech, the nouns, the adjectives, verbs, and prepositional phrases, then you can get into your sentence patterning chart. And here it is. So, for the sentence patterning chart, it's important for you to color code it. So whether you're putting it on a poster, or you make a PowerPoint, or a smartboard presentation or whatever, just make sure that each column is color coded. If the paper itself isn't color coded, or your presentation isn't color coded, you could also use different colors of markers, just so that the students have a better visual when they're going back to follow the sentence pattern and to create sentences. So this is what the sentence patterning chart looks like. It's 4 columns, one for each part of speech, and I'm going to begin by talking about the noun. So the noun that you're talking about, or that you're discussing, should be predetermined. So I chose student just because it was something easy to begin with for this presentation, but I'm also going to show you a completed chart that I made with my students. But you could use anything. Maybe you just did a whole unit about the Arctic fox, or penguins, or I don't know, butterflies, or whatever. That can be your noun, so you can always tie it into something that the kids are learning in science, or reading class, or even social studies. So I chose student. So what you would do is you would introduce the student, the noun to the student. So you say, all right, boys and girls, today we're going to think about a student. You could think about yourself, or you could think about a friend, or just whatever you imagine in your brain as a student. And then you'll review what an adjective is, and then brainstorm a a list of adjectives that could be used to describe the student. So you might say smart, or silly, or funny, or fast, or tall, or whatever. Okay, so you come up with this list of adjectives about the student. Following adjectives, you'll go over to the verbs column, review again what a verb is, and then have students think about what students do. It could be serious, like reading and writing, or it could be something silly. So let's put in the student reads, the student dances, the student plays, or the student jumps. Okay. Next, you go over to the prepositional phrases. Again, you have them think about where a student might do these things. Could be silly, could be serious. So you just have them kind of brainstorm on their own. This should be completely student generated. So they might say in the classroom, because that's where they are. And I also add a period at the end, so when they're writing their sentence pattern, they always remember to add that period. Okay, in the classroom, on the playground, at my house. Where else could they be? On the table. I don't know. Okay. So after you have filled out your chart with your students, you would then use some sticky notes to show different ways that you can create sentence patterns. Another important thing I forgot to mention is I write the word the on my chart. Let me just show you. So here's a chart that I actually did with my first graders. It's about pandas, and up in the top left corner is the word the, because each sentence is going to begin with the word the. Okay, so I did forget to mention that and to add it to that slide, but it is on my poster. And as you can see, I have the Post-its, so the students help me to pick different parts of speech, and then comes the fun part. So after the chart's filled in, and then you've chosen what you're going to write about, you're actually going to sing about it first. And the sentence patterns are all sung to the tune of The Farmer and the Dow. So if you don't know that one, you should check it out, and then you'll be able to sing with your students. All right, so anyway, back to this. So then you model it for the students one time, and then you can have them sing it with you the second time. So it sounds like this. So just follow the arrows. The fluffy panda jumps. The fluffy panda jumps. The fluffy panda jumps in my pocket. And the kids love this. They like to sing it. They like to create silly sentences and different sentences. So it is a lot of fun. You can practice as many sentences as you'd like, or, depending on how your students are feeling. And then you can have them write. So here is a student-created graphic organizer. I did help them to fold the paper again and to, trace the lines so they can make the columns. And they follow me as they brainstorm. I write them on my big poster, and then they write it on theirs. I even spent some time to help them learn how to draw a panda, because I know that can be like a point of almost contention when it comes to drawing and illustrating. So I show them how. And then here's an example, where are you, of a student writing. So she followed the sentence pattern. They get to pick their own. The fat elephant sits on the house. So they just love to make these silly sentences. I love sentence patterning. I think it's super useful for the kids and for you as well, just, as a teaching tool. And I hope that you try it out and love it as much as I do. Thanks for watching. See ya.